Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the latest political developments shaking the world stage and right here at home. Today, we're talking about a situation that's heating up fast, Russia's ongoing aggression, and how President Trump is responding, or not responding, in ways that are raising eyebrows across the board. You see, just this morning, as reports come in about Russia ramping up its military moves, Trump is out there laying down new conditions for imposing those tough sanctions on Moscow that everyone's been waiting for. But here's the twist. He's tying it all to what Europe does next. Europe is still buying oil from Russia, and Trump is saying flat out, I don't want them to buy oil. He's frustrated because the sanctions that are already in place, the ones they're putting on, just aren't tough enough in his view. And get this, he's willing to slap on more sanctions himself, but only if the Europeans step up and toughen their own sanctions to match what he's doing. It's like he's saying, I'll do my part if you do yours. But in the high-stakes game of international politics, that kind of conditional approach can feel a bit shaky. Trump is essentially saying he'll sanction Russia, but only if NATO countries jump on board and do the same. And oh, by the way, they also have to agree to impose sanctions on China, too. Now, sanctioning China, that's a whole other beast, and it's an unlikely scenario at best because China is such a massive player in the global economy, and getting everyone aligned on that would be like herding cats on steroids. On top of that, he's demanding that NATO members completely stop buying Russian oil and gas, which sounds strong on paper, but let's be real, many European countries rely heavily on that energy supply to keep their lights on and their economies humming, so cutting it off cold turkey isn't as simple as flipping a switch. Analysts are calling this, in a way, a bit of an empty threat, and I have to say, it does have that vibe, because for weeks now, the president has been threatening Russia with all sorts of economic consequences if they don't back down. But he hasn't followed through on any of it. He's blown past his own deadlines time and again, leaving people wondering if these are just words or if action is actually coming. Meanwhile, up on Capitol Hill, the pressure is mounting from some Republicans who are usually in his corner, but now they're saying enough is enough. It's time to act now. One senator put it bluntly, I think appropriate sanctions on Russia are far overdue. And you can feel the urgency in their voices because this isn't just talk. The tensions are running sky high in Eastern Europe right now, with real military maneuvers and incursions that could spark something bigger. For instance, Russia and Belarus are holding these joint military exercises that have everyone on edge, flexing their muscles in a region that's already a powder keg. Then, over the weekend, Romania had to scramble fighter jets after Russian drones violated their airspace. That's the second incursion over a NATO country in less than a week, which is alarming to say the least. Just days earlier, Poland was forced to shoot down more than a dozen Russian drones that crossed into their territory, turning what could have been a minor blip into a full-on defensive response. President Trump has tried to downplay these drone incursions, suggesting they could have been a mistake. Maybe an accident, nothing intentional. Could have been a mistake, he said, repeating it for emphasis as if to brush it off. But Poland isn't buying that at all. They insist it was deliberate, a calculated move to probe weaknesses. And it's not just them. Texas Congressman Michael McCall told ABC News he believes it was too, saying with all due respect to the president, I don't think that was a mistake. I think Putin is testing the resolve of NATO. That rings true when you look at the pattern. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a broader strategy to push boundaries and see how far they can go without provoking a massive backlash. It's been 1 month since Trump rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin during that high-profile meeting in Alaska, where he promised that Putin would face severe sanctions if he didn't agree to a ceasefire in the ongoing conflict. At the time, it seemed like a bold diplomatic play, but since then, Putin has only escalated the war, ramping up attacks and showing no signs of slowing down. Russia is also still dashing any hopes for meaningful peace talks, even though President Trump announced weeks ago that arrangements were beginning to be made for Putin to finally sit down and talk with Ukrainian President Zelensky. It was supposed to be this big breakthrough, But now Trump is conceding that this is proving to be more difficult than he initially thought it would be, which is putting it mildly. Diplomacy with Russia has always been a minefield, full of false starts and broken promises. Shifting gears a bit, but staying on the theme of Trump's aggressive stance, the president is making new threats to send troops into American cities, escalating his use of the military on U.S. soil in ways that are stirring up controversy left and right. This time, he's targeting a Republican-led state, announcing that he's going to be sending in the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee, claiming that only he can save the city from its crime problems. The Republican governor there is actually welcoming this deployment, seeing it as extra help to tackle the issues on the ground. But the Democratic mayor of the city, he's pushing back hard, saying he doesn't need this, doesn't want it, and doesn't think it will actually bring down crime there. In fact, he argues it could make things worse by militarizing local law enforcement. Meanwhile, right here in Washington, D.C., the president is again threatening to declare a national emergency if local police refuse to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement efforts, which is another layer of tension in an already divided country. This isn't the first time Trump has floated ideas like this. He's long talked about using federal power to crack down on what he sees as out of control urban crime and immigration issues, but deploying the National Guard domestically raises serious questions about federal overreach and the role of the military in civilian affairs. Critics are worried it sets a dangerous precedent, blurring the lines between national defense and local policing, while supporters say it's necessary to restore order in cities plagued by violence. Looking back at the Russia situation, it's worth noting how interconnected all this is. Trump's foreign policy demands are clashing with domestic politics, and his conditional sanctions approach might be weakening America's position abroad. If Europe doesn't budge on cutting off Russian energy, does that mean no new sanctions from the US? And what about the drone incidents? If they're tests of NATO's resolve, as McCall suggests, then downplaying them could embolden Putin further, leading to more aggressive actions that pull the alliance into direct conflict. Remember, NATO's Article 5 treats an attack on one as an attack on all, so these airspace violations aren't just nuisances, they're potential flashpoints. Trump's meeting with Putin in Alaska was meant to de-escalate, but with no ceasefire and escalating drone strikes, it feels like we're moving backward. Peace talks with Zelensky seemed promising at first, but the difficulties Trump now admits to highlight the deep mistrust between Russia and Ukraine, compounded by years of warfare and territorial disputes. On the home front, sending the National Guard to Memphis is a bold move, especially in a red state, but the mayor's opposition shows how even within parties there's division on federal intervention. Crime in cities like Memphis is a complex issue involving poverty, education, and community policing, not just boots on the ground. And the national emergency threat for immigration. That's aimed at forcing local cooperation, but it could lead to legal battles and further polarize the nation. As we wrap this up, it's clear that Trump's strategy, whether on Russia or domestic security, is all about leverage. But the question is, will it work or will it backfire? Stay tuned for more updates and let me know in the comments what you think about these developments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.